Hello and welcome. Today we're talking about Christian premarital counseling. Christian premarital counseling. Now, what is Christian premarital counseling? A Christian is one who acknowledges Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, or her Lord and Savior. And then marital counseling. Pre means before marriage counseling. Because oftentimes what I've seen is that people get into marriage without the appropriate marital counseling. And then when they get into marriage, you have problems. Simple things that could have been addressed during your premarital counseling was not addressed. So you enter into marriage thinking that you know it all, I know this person, and then you end up with problems. Now, before you get into the relationship that leads to marriage, there are certain steps that we ought to follow. One, you need to meet the person. How do you meet the person? Or where do you meet the person? Anywhere. You could meet at school, in church, in your place of business. You can meet at just anywhere along the road. And then when you meet somebody you think you like, become an acquaintance. That acquaintance, in the course of being acquaintances, you know the person's name, perhaps where he or she works, what he does for a living, or what she does for a living, and all that. And then you find this person really interesting. And then you become friends. Mark it. If you miss any of these stages in your premarital life, when you get married, you will need to address it. And that will be the source of problems. So, like I said at the beginning, acquaintance. From acquaintance, you like the person, you like the person's mannerisms, you like the person's personality. You now go into what we call friendship. The person becomes your friend. You start hanging out together, go on dates together. And from having just dates, going out to talk, going to places, watching the movies, the person becomes your date. Your date. That's a particular person as your date. And then as time goes on, you propose. You marry me. I see you in my life. You know, things like that. And then you propose. And once you have proposed, as a Christian, before you can propose to somebody and have a really healthy and fruitful marital relationship, you first and foremost need to know yourself. Who am I? What do I stand for? Where do I see myself in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Do I really want to make heaven? For a Christian, the whole goal of Christianity is making heaven. So, whatever will prevent you from making heaven, you just keep it aside and be focused. Now, for your marriage, like I always say, whoever you end up getting married to will determine if you would live in heaven on earth or your hell already begins on earth. Your marital partner proves that to you. So you don't take decisions, premarital counseling lightly. You must take it very seriously. Now, once you have proposed, be my wife, and the lady accepts that, the next thing you need to do is to get to know each other more intimately. And when I say more intimately, I'm not talking about sexually. More intimately means asking questions like, who are you really? Can I know more about you? Have you witnessed your parents fighting? I mean, physical fight? Was your mother physically abused by her father? Or was your father physically abused by the mother? Because there are consequences in the life of every child that has seen such things. Another very important question you need to ask, because I always tell them what you do in the course of your premarital life will play out either positively or negatively in your marriage. So you need to be asking questions instead of having sex. Because when you start having sex, you're going to be myopic. You will see less and less and less of the things that are important, such that when you get into marriage, you will feel you're getting married to a total stranger, and that will not be helpful for your marital experience. So, another very important question you need to ask is, who is your mentor in life? Or who is your mentor in marriage? Your mentor in marriage would end up becoming somebody like a couple that has a very good marriage. You know, there's nothing like a perfect marriage anywhere. A good marriage, that person will be able to influence you positively. And when peradventure you have a problem in your young marriage and he tells you or she tells you, stop it, go this way, or stop it, go that way, you obey even without questioning because you have come to trust him or her. That person is your significant other or your mentor in marriage. I've seen cases where the husband tells the wife, leave my house. I don't ever want you in my life anymore. You are this, you're that, and all that. And being a mentor to the couple, I've called the man and said, my friend, no, 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 she goes nowhere. Come, let's sort out this matter together. And because of the respect he has for me, he obeyed. And today they're living happily. So there's something people usually overlook, young people overlook the role of a mentor in the life of their fiance or fiancé. It's very important. And then you find out that when you ask a question like that, the person may tell you, I really don't have anybody. If you find a man that has nobody he looks up to, run. Because when problems come to you, you have nobody to turn to. If you have a lady that says, "Oh, I know nobody influences my decisions. I do what I want to do when I want to do it, how I want to do it." What about God? Yes, I pray and whatever God says is fine, but I know what I want and I really don't have anybody. Usually, it may not really be their parents. So sometimes, depending on the relationship some children have with their parents, yes, their parents could play very important roles in their life. But most of the time, it's not usually the parents. It's somebody outside the family circle that they have come to look up to and respect. So that is a very important point you need to know. And then for Christian courtship, premarital counseling, once you have proposed, you go into courtship. And that's where you start preparing for marriage. And a very important aspect of preparing for marriage is to have premarital counseling. What we see is that people prepare for their wedding day without actually preparing for married life. Wedding day is when you spend all the money you think you have. Wedding day is where you concentrate on how you're going to dance, what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat for one day. But just after that wedding day, married life begins. And when you enter into married life without proper premarital preparation, your marriage is heading for the rocks, especially as Christians. When we say we're Christians, it means we have a personal relationship with Christ. And now we find out that many people call themselves Christians without a personal relationship with Christ. And when you don't have a personal relationship with Christ, you are just a nominal Christian and not a practicing Christian. And there's the problem that goes with nominal Christianity is enormous. or the problems are enormous. So we need to look into all that. Other issues that we could also raise in the course of premarital counseling include: what are the traditional issues and cultural issues in your family, in your ethnic really tribe, in your ethnicity, actually? Because there are some ethnicities that have rules that are enormous, to say the least. I've seen a lot of them. How do you communicate? Communication is very important, and there are different types of communication. You have the verbal, non-verbal communication, you have the body language, you know, you have the benefits of good communication. You can communicate about anything, just about anything, about finance, about sex. Hmm. And when we lack this proper communication, we have problems. The biggest issue we have in marriage today is lack of communication, or lack of proper communication. People end up insulting themselves and they say we're communicating. We talk about verbal violence, you know. You say, yeah, I've never touched her, I've never beaten her. But you verbally violated her. You've spoken to her in a very violent, verbal way. We talk about sexual violence. Do you know that there's something called domestic rape among married couples? We need to talk about all of that. What about communication about relationship with in-laws? In-laws are actually in-loves. If you're in love with your husband, you're in love with your wife, they become your in-loves. But usually they are very powerful to making your marriage successful or to making it fail. We'll talk about living and cleaving. If you don't live, you can't cleave. Leaving your relations, or your relations in marriage, in your family, to cleave to your husband or your wife, doesn't mean you will never take care of them anymore. Doesn't mean you will never communicate with them anymore. It just means that there's now someone that is more important than them. Yes, your wife is more important than your relation, your brother, your sisters. Your husband is more important than your brothers and your sisters. So you put first things first, and then you will live properly. We'll talk about the spirituality of marriage. Your family first is a domestic church before you go out to your church, wherever you worship. If your domestic church is not in order, the big church out there will never be in order. These are the things you need to be counseled about. What about family economy? We talk about managing the family's resources, the responsible use of family resources, savings, investments. Are you going to have joint accounts? What do you do about that? These are things that you must discuss and agree upon before you enter into marriage. How do we reimburse our family members? How do we give money to our parents? Who does it? How do we do it? How much do we give? How often do we give? Is it daily? Is it monthly? Is it weekly? These are issues that has to be sorted out before you enter into marriage. I'd like to stop here so that this video doesn't get too long. We'll actually have a part 2 of premarital counseling. Thanks for staying on with this video. It means that you have been touched by it. If you need any further information or clarification, please find my contact at the video description below. Thank you so much for your time.